If there's one thing people like in games, it's narrative choices. They can be some of the most memorable moments in a story, and while some games don't do their choices well, either for narrative or gameplay reasons, here's a game that does, as it's all about tough decisions. The Life and Suffering of Sir Brante was released in 2021 and developed by Studio Sever. As you may infer from the title, this is not a happy game. What it is a game of choices, consequences, and sometimes making the best of a bad situation. Add in its simple but unique gameplay, and I think there's a decent hidden gem here. I'm going to skip the story explanation for now, as it goes hand in hand with the greater gameplay discussion. But in short, you'd play as Sir Brante from his literal birth through his childhood to his adult life. It takes place in a more Renaissance era setting that you'll quickly learn isn't our own world. The game is choose your own adventure style, with each of your choices affecting stats, relationships, and possibly locking you in or out of future events. With a branching narrative, you will live through the life of Sir Brante, where there may in fact be some suffering as you know a foreboding future awaits you. Presentation-wise, the game has limited but well done visuals. It has this black and white, comic book-esque gothic graphical style that makes every image shown pop. While all the game is done through this simple book menu, the details of the visuals compensates for it. Sound-wise, we have a good musical score. As the game consists mostly of text next to an image, it's important to get the music right to set the tone and mood. The overall soundtrack fits the setting and theme, very rustic and generally with a slight grim undertone. Add in some ambient noises like a bustling street of people chattering, and the game's audio does a good job of accompanying you while you read without being too noticeable or distracting. There's also a rare bit of voice acting in cutscenes, which is delivered well. I wish they could have voice acted the whole game, but I understand that would have been a lot of extra work. But getting more into the gameplay and story, The Life and Suffering of Sir Brante gives us a changing narrative in a format where we can see how our choices matter. This is a text adventure game with a significant branching narrative halfway through as you decide what life path Sir Brante sets himself on. Your decisions will define his character and how people around him see him. He'll become more courageous or intelligent through doing such deeds. While Sir Brante isn't the protagonist of his world, he is the protagonist of his own story and will have significant effects on the world around him. But what is this world? In the land of the Archenian Empire, you're either a noble or a commoner. Nobles are born to rule, fight, and create art, while commoners are born to toil and suffer. This is codified in the Lots, a form of caste system where your birth defines your destiny, which is also enforced by the local religion of the Twin Gods. It is possible though for a commoner to become a noble through great deeds, which is the situation Sir Brante finds himself in. Born of a commoner mother and minor noble father, if he and his full noble half-brother Stephen can keep up the Brante name, they're the third and final generation needed to elevate the family to full nobility. This all sounds kinda typical, an upper and lower class system where the rich rule over the weak with the power of the corrupt church, but here comes the twist. For starters, the gods are real. There's no question of it, they exist. There's a giant pillar of light, at the top of which is apparently the world's heaven. People are born with 3 lives, and respawn if they die before their destined death, unless they're sentenced to execution in a court of law. So wait then, if the gods are real, does that mean the class system is objectively right? To what degree are nobles supposed to rule and commoners supposed to suffer by their lot? Are we sure the church is correct in their interpretation in the first place? Then we have the Archenians, a race of blue people who are the rulers and true nobles of the land. And it's in this familiar yet different setting that you need to think and carefully consider your choices. When your sister Sophia goes against her commoner lot by writing poetry, should you support her if it's against the literal god's will? Are you sure the gods care about it at all? How do you approach your brother Nathan's questions of faith? Do you oppose the lots, or try to work for change within them? What I think makes this game cool is that the choices aren't always a question of morality, but also religion and fate. Sometimes it's a question of your family's unity and love for each other, or their reputation, which could affect their noble standing. But more on making choices, that's all you do in this game. When you're born, for example, you can reach out either for your mother or your father first, and this will give you a boost to a particular stat. These stats will give you options later on, either unlocking new scenes and story developments, which in turn could lead to even more, or allowing you to perform an action only if you're brave enough or have enough diplomacy. A similar thing is done with relationships, where affections slide and scale, and you may only be able to get what you want if a character likes you. There's also 2 other resources besides his normal stats, willpower and lives. Will is essentially accumulated in place of stats and spent when doing a larger action, so instead of gaining a point of intelligence, you get some will to spend when you need to stand up for yourself in a fight. Then we have your lives, of which you have 3. There's points in the game where you can die, either by choice or just a bad situation. While limited, there are times where spending a life can have a large return on stats or it can help you a lot down the line. But since you only get 3, you'll need to think before you spend one. You can clearly see what you gain and lose from every decision, and you'll constantly have the thought in the back of your head of what's the right call. For your first playthrough, I recommend just going with what you feel instead of worrying about the stats and planning, just to see what happens. And that's really it in terms of the gameplay, nothing too complex. You go through the story living life according to your choices, and eventually you'll need to decide a career path that will significantly change later events in the game. You may play as a reputation-obsessed aspiring nobleman, or the complete opposite and fight for commoners' rights. You can see early on in the chapter timeline that a revolt will happen, but why and what role you'll play in it are up to you. There's a good amount of replay value here to see what happens differently, and to see characters you're only really engaged with if you choose a certain path. That does lead me to a small negative though, and that's that replaying the game can be a bit more annoying than it needs to be. While you can replay chapters from the beginnings, there isn't a fast forward option, and you're left rapidly clicking the next button. It's not a big deal, except for those trying all the different paths the game has, but it would be an improvement. Luckily, according to the devlogs, they are working on other games within this world, so maybe we can get a Sir Brante 2 of sorts. I'd like to see them explore this setting more. In the end, the life and suffering of Sir Brante gets us an engaging text adventure with meaningful choices which we can see how much they matter. Everything builds up and we can map out consequences of our actions. The narrative and setting are unique and interesting, and the game's style is memorable and suits it well. So if you want a casual game to read through, or you like to see where your choices may bring you, go play The Life and Suffering of Sir Brante. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. If you liked it for some weird reason, consider leaving a like or comment. If you didn't like it, well, leave a comment anyways about what I did wrong. If you want to hear about more games I think are neat, or whatever random thing I end up making videos on, maybe also think about subscribing. Whatever you choose to do, I hope you have a nice day.